G'day, legends! We are back for more of the Karen Reed retrial. This is what, yesterday? We're still on the stand with Redirect with one of the most weaselly people I've ever met, directing questions at one of the smarmiest people I've ever seen. So let's get stuck into it, because let's face it, I am running really freaking late today. So just let's get it done. G'day, Glennis. Hope you're doing well.
You filed a protocol. What was the purpose in October when you first got involved in filing a protocol?
Sure. So the first purpose of the protocol was just to address the fact that we were missing data that we expected. And
damn good thing I got moving. Wait, what's happened there?
address a potential solution to gather more data.
Without having looked at the physical property, the actual boards, how did you conclude simply on data and photographs that there was missing data?
Sure. So that would be reviewing the initial data that was provided and not seeing.
Oh, honestly, Glennis, I can't complain. It was a bit of a day, but when is it not? And I'm just glad I was able to get through it in one piece, and more importantly, so did everybody else, which is aces in my book. I'm very glad that you didn't have any tornadoes near the house. Very, very glad. Although, I will say, I've got that morbid curiosity because I was right at that right age when Twister came out that I did go through a phase of wanting to be a storm chaser. I think I'd be fucking terrified doing it now, but hey, you know.
User data like I would expect. And that's because there's a number of different chips that are on a circuit board for an infotainment or telematics or any other module. And there's a number of different data bearing chips. The purpose of those chips will vary. Some chips' main purpose is to store user data. Some chips' main purpose is to store software or firmware. So if you're gathering, acquiring data from chips that only have software and firmware, then you would not expect or you would not see user data within those chips.
When you made that analysis and concluded that there was missing data, had there been any report provided by Ms. Gaffney suggesting there was missing data?
No, there was not.
Had there been any analysis or opinion alerting that there was missing data?
No, there was not.
Was there anything to indicate that the person who did this test missed data at that point?
No, not at that point.
When you decided to write a protocol so you could actually look at the boards and do an analysis, did you put that protocol in writing?
Yes, I did.
And do you remember if that was around October 10, 2024?
That sounds familiar. Yes.
Now, when you were cross-examined, the attorney asked you if you knew what the word mendacity meant. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And you didn't know. Do you now know that means to lie or be untruthful?
Your Honor. Sustained.
He didn't ask you a question. He just asked you if you knew what the word was. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember he also, on cross-examination, suggested that when you had your mistake about megabytes, megabits, it was the defense expert that alerted you to that mistake? Do you remember that suggestion by the defense?
Yes, I do.
Did they ever show you the documents so you could see the chronology?
No, they did not.
Okay.
Oh, this is gonna be brutal. Brennan is flailing here. That you don't come out of the gates with that sort of shit if your witness has provided what was supposed to during direct and has survived without much need of rehabilitation through the cross. Someone poked. So this is Alessi the pharmacist well and truly went in and earned his doctorate because he poked until it hurt, and Brennan is sitting there flailing, going, "Ow!" This is going to be beautiful.
You wrote a report on October 10, 2024. Did you then write another report, a supplemental protocol?
Yes. So I did write that initial protocol and then a supplemental protocol.
Was that on October 17, 2024?
That sounds about right.
When you wrote that a week later, at that point, had you realized your mistake?
All right.
Why did you?
Hey,
See, and here's the thing, and a few people have called it out, but I saw that Nick Starr pointed it out very today. Brennan's got this really bad habit of asking a question that he knows is going to get objected to, but will lead his witness to the answer that he wants when he re-asks the question. He's done it the entire trial. It's a sleazy tactic, and frankly, should have been reined in by the judge a long time ago. However, he continues to get away with it. Just because she allowed Alessi to have a robust cross doesn't mean she's not going to give Brennan as much of a leg up as possible.
When you realized your error,
Don't
what
run
did
over
you
the
do?
bicycle.
So I intended to correct it with a supplemental protocol.
When you corrected it with a supplemental protocol, do you remember what date that was?
Not specifically, I do not.
If I showed you your report, would that help your memory?
Yes, it would.
May I approach?
yes.
Please don't read this, just look at it. And if it refreshes your memory, let me know, and then I'll ask you a question.
Yes, it does.
When did you correct your error with the supplemental protocol?
That was on October 17th, 2024.
And do you remember the date that you first received any information from Mr. DeSorga?
No, I do not
Do you remember
specifically.
the date when Mr. DeSorga's information was first filed?
No, I do not.
And do you know if it was, whether it was after your October 17th supplementary report?
Not specifically, but I believe it was after.
And so when it was suggested that you had to be schooled or advised by Mr. DeSorga, was that accurate?
Objection, Your Honor.
Worded differently. Worded differently.
The claim that was made that you weren't aware until someone advised you of your error, was that true?
No, that was untrue.
When
So
you
why was it?
realized
No,
there's
no,
an error-
hang on. So, Spanky, you're really skipping something over here, though. If he was aware of his error, why did he not rectify it sooner? Is my question. Is he alleging that he rectified it with this amended protocol prior to the defense expert pointing it out? In which case, why did the defense expert feel the need to point it out in the first place if there was already amending protocols in place? I'm calling bullshit on the timeline on that, but we both know that this guy and Spanky are trying to basically play hopscotch and the time warp in order to make everything fit in this case. So this guy's ego got majorly bruised, and he's hoping that Brennan's going to pour some aloe vera on him, and I don't know that it's going to help.
and we put it in a report, were you ever dissuaded from publicly alerting all the parties of your mistake?
No,
Do you leave stuff in or out of a report if you find it helpful or hurtful to one side?
no, I do not.
Have you, in this effort that you've made in this case, have you always been encouraged to provide all information, regardless of what it is?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that.
Yes, I have.
And who's encouraged you to always provide all information, regardless of what it
No,
says?
no one. So my job is to assist the jury.
What the
So
fuck?
the jury.
You literally just said the whole way through you've been encouraged to do that, and he just said, who encouraged you? Oh, no one? So who the fuck encouraged you then? So you haven't been encouraged. This is another witness that needs a fucking dictionary so that he can understand the meaning of certain words. What the hell?
Assisting the jury means presenting all the information.
Have you ever been discouraged by me?
No, I have not.
Have you ever been
Would
encouraged
you-
by me?
Looked at the photographs and you looked at the boards without actually touching them, how long did it take you to figure out that there was some other vehicle for data?
Sure. So it took a few times to look at the photographs before I identified the micro SD card slot.
You were asked whether it's important to be accurate and reliable. Is it in this field?
Yes, it is.
And if data is not found on the chips, is it a standard practice to look elsewhere?
Yes, that would be a standard practice.
Was that done in this case before you became involved?
No, it was not.
Who was the first person to identify where the missing information was?
Myself.
What happens if you
Information, was there?
miss information because you don't see it?
So if you miss information, that's information that won't help in the analysis.
In this case, the
No shit,
information
Sherlock.
on the SD card that you found, how important was that to this entire analysis?
It was important to timestamp certain events.
Without that information in the SD card, would you have been able to so accurately timestamp certain events?
No, not so accurately.
Before you were involved, was that information, that very important information for timestamps, was that available for either side?
No, it was not.
Is it now?
It is.
You were asked about Burla. When Burla did not have updated software to simply plug into a car and download the information, what process would have to be used?
Sure. So best practice for vehicle forensics is if the module or a vehicle is not supported by a forensic tool, would be to remove that module, or let me start over, manually document the screens on that infotainment module if it's available and it can be powered up. But then also going through disassembling the module, identifying any type of chips or SD cards that may hold data, and acquiring that data.
Is that called a chip-off process?
It is called a chip-off process.
Does it describe the process well, chip-off?
Yes, it does.
Since Ms. Gaffney did the original analysis and did that chip-off, has the software updated?
Yes.
Is that the Burla software?
No, I'm sorry. So she has not done a updated analysis with the Burla software.
But has the Burla software itself updated?
So the Burla software itself has updated, but it is limited to, again, plugging in a USB into the infotainment module while it's in the car running.
Does the updates in Burla software have anything to do with the SD card?
No, it does not.
Why not?
Because, again, they're going a different route to acquire data, and they are acquiring a limited amount of data through what's called diagnostic logs. So if you think of diagnostic logs, your radio unit is keeping logs of any time things happen on the radio for manufacturer purposes. So Burla is taking those logs and they can interpret some of those logs. They are not, acquiring all the data that is on the SD card itself.
You have drafted a number of reports in this case.
I have, yes.
Regarding the chip-off process, did Ms. Gaffney ever write a report?
No, not that I'm aware of.
When you wrote reports in this case, do you expect for them to be shared?
Yes, I do.
When other experts, like, for example, Mr. DeSorga writes a report, do you expect to have a copy and review it?
Yes.
Sustained.
What is the standard practice when there are reports from different experts regarding the same subject matter?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Is there a standard practice
Sure.
regarding reviewing reports from similar experts in similar subject matter?
Sure. So anytime a report is written by an expert, that report would be provided and shared with opposing experts.
Reports, do they always come at the same time in a case?
No, they do not.
Do they come during
When
the trial?
you wrote your reports,
Generally not.
how would you provide them so they could be disseminated?
Sure. So that I would typically provide them to the client or the attorney that hired me, and then that would be disseminated from there.
Did you have an opportunity to receive Mr. DeSorga's March 5th, 2025 PowerPoint?
Yes, I did.
Were you provided that by me, the Commonwealth?
Yes, I was.
And were you asked or given any direction on what you could or should do?
No, I was not.
Were you ever asked to reach any particular result?
No, I was not.
Were you ever asked to avoid anything?
No, I was not.
What did you see your role as when you receive a report from another expert like Mr. DeSorga?
Sure. So when I receive a report, I would typically review it and then make a decision if it's better to address any issues in that report through testimony or address those with a supplemental report.
And in that analysis, do you follow your own discretion or do you follow directions of the client?
No, I would follow my own discretion.
Did you ever receive any direction on what you should and shouldn't do regarding considering Mr. DeSorga's report?
No, I did not.
When you looked at Mr. DeSorga's report, did you have concerns about his report?
I did, yes.
I want to talk about his report in detail. Before we get there, share with us what your general concerns were about Mr. DeSorga's report when you reviewed the whole report.
Sure. So what Mr. DeSorga does is take a couple different adjustment methods to attempt to adjust the clock from the Lexus with the iPhone. But what he does is takes a lot of methods or data points that are not applicable to the time that we're interested in.
What do you mean? Can you explain with a little more specificity what he does?
Sure. So if you think about it, your clock is constantly, changing as far as it syncs up with other GPS satellites or network time servers, and it's updating constantly. So a clock variance between two devices may be different at, say, 12 o'clock in the day versus 1 o'clock in the day. So best practice is to choose an event that is nearest to your time in question, so you have the most appropriate adjustment for that clock variance.
Mr. DeSorga's analysis, did he choose the event most closely tied to the backing up event?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
The backing up event, are you familiar with that time frame?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Was Mr. DeSorga's analysis based on information most closely related to that event?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
What information did Mr. DeSorga choose to use for that analysis relative to the backing up event?
Sure. So he chose a couple things. That's going to be call logs that happened on both devices or that was recorded on both devices, as well as a GPS data point, which was incorrectly identified as being near that or encompassing that 3-point turn. So what we did is did a more thorough analysis of that 3-point turn event, when it occurred.
This dipshit's going to have to explain to me why, because I would fully take that as appropriate. If a call is made through a phone and is connected to the Bluetooth of a car, and there are call logs on both the phone and the car as to when that call was made, I kind of feel like you could use that to deduce what the difference in the times are on the both clocks. Even allowing for a slight delay, maybe 3 seconds for Bluetooth. And that I would consider that to be an extreme delay as well. I'm very curious for him to explain exactly why his method would be better than that, because that is what I would consider to be the most appropriate method.
Within the iPhone data, and then compared that and adjusted with the Lexus.
Explain to us your concern about using call logs.
Sure. So there's a number of call logs that you saw earlier that were recorded by the phone and the Lexus. The one thing you'll notice, and it's hard to kind of go back to it without the graph, but the calls that happened between 1 and 5 o'clock that morning actually happened when the car was powered off. We know that based on the power on and power off events. So those timestamps that are recorded with that 2-second and 1-second offset is actually from Mrs. Reed's iPhone as she gets back in the vehicle and her phone connects up and syncs back up. So the 8-second and the 16 or 21-second offset are the only offsets that we have to compare to calls.
Was that a concern?
It was a concern.
Why?
Because if you're using the 1 and 2-second offsets, that could be misleading because it's not actually comparing the Lexus clock with the iPhone clock from Mr. O'Keefe.
What's it doing?
It's comparing the Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone clock with Mrs. Reed's iPhone clock.
What other concerns?
What?
Sure. So the other concern was a GPS point known as GPS 154, which, if you remember yesterday, we talked about it a little bit. So that was misidentified as being the end or towards the end of that 3-point turn. But when we look closer at all the location data, we can see that actually occurs between 12:23:59 and I believe it was 12:24:07.
Let me ask you some questions about what compelled you to look at the 3-point turn and synchronize the clocks. Were you aware of Mr. Whiffin's report where he offered that the last user interaction on Mr. Whiffin's phone was 12:32:09?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
No. You were asked, did you consider Mr. Whiffin's report where there was a last user interaction of 12:32:09 by the user?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that.
You were asked if you considered that. Did you know that information?
I did know that information was available and existed, but I did not use that in my analysis for the clock synchronization.
Did that have any part of your motivation to do the clock synchronization?
No, it did not.
Were you attempting to match the synchronization with any of this other information that exists in data?
No, I was not.
You were also asked if you were aware of Mr. O'Keefe's phone that at 12:32:16, it ended its movement.
Yes, I was aware of that. Yes.
Did that in any way affect your interest or your decision to synchronize the clocks?
No, it did not. So my primary focus and to adjust the clocks was because I thought the PowerPoint slides by Mr. DeSogra were misleading.
When you were shown Exhibit 190, can we have 190, please? you have shown this chart. Was this the entirety of Mr. DeSorga's report?
No, it was not.
Was there text information offered by Mr. DeSorga to give his position or explanation of this?
Yes, there was.
Is that included in this exhibit?
No, it's not.
Did you get a chance to read Mr. DeSorga's report, including the actual text explaining his analysis and process leading to this chart?
Yes, I was.
Did you look at Mr. DeSorga's entire report?
Yes, I did.
I move to introduce Mr. DeSorga's report.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, so this was triple D for identification. That will be the next exhibit.
Exhibit 191.
All this does is reconfirm to me that this report never should have seen the inside
You
of
said
the
as a
courtroom.
result of Mr. DeSorga's report, you were concerned, so that compelled you to do your analysis that resulted in your May 8th report.
Correct.
I want you to take us through Mr. DeSorga's report and explain to the jury what concerned you about his analysis.
Sure.
With the court's permission, I'd like to put this page.
Pretty much, Major, because what he needs to do is make sure that the face lock occurs prior to the reversing event, because otherwise it doesn't make sense that John would interact with his phone and close the phone after being hit by the car, allegedly going in reverse. Is what he's basically trying to say. I'll be honest, Steph, it like after the first 100 days or so, you don't even notice it.
One of this report. Okay. Is this the front cover of Mr. DeSorga's March 5th, 2025 report?
Yes, it is.
Turn to page 2, please. What do you recognize this slide or photograph coming from?
Sure. So this slide is coming from Dr. Welcher's overall PowerPoint slides.
When you first saw this slide, where did you first see, which source did you first see this through?
Through Mr. DeSorga's PowerPoint.
Well, Dr. Welcher works at Aperture, doesn't he?
He does, yes.
Did you know he was working on this case?
Yes, I did.
Was he providing you his PowerPoint or slides before this point?
No, he was not.
When you first saw this slide, did you see information about the timing of the tech stream event, which was the backing maneuver?
Yes, I did.
And what time did that show?
Can we blow it up just so I don't get the time
Please.
wrong?
Up, please. I'm sorry. Up. Here we go. Thank you, Ms. Gilman.
Sure. So that's got the tech stream event ending at 12:31:43.
These tech stream events that are captured, do you know how long of the event is captured? How many seconds?
Yes. So approximately 5 seconds before the trigger threshold is met and 5 seconds after.
When this information that you reviewed in Mr. DeSorga's report, do you know what clock is used to identify the 12:31:38 to 12:31:43?
Yes, I do.
And what clock is that?
So that's a combination of the Lexus clock that's coming from the infotainment center, as well as the running timer that we discussed yesterday that's coming from the airbag module itself.
Is the source of that time important?
Yes, it is.
If you compare time from a different clock with time from a different clock and don't synchronize the two, does that lead you to an accurate result?
No, it does not.
When you were answering questions, you repeatedly were saying, according to the Lexus clock. Why were you offering that qualification repeatedly? One moment, please.
Sure.
Why were you offering that qualification repeatedly?
Sure. So to make sure that the jury understood that that timestamp was coming from the Lexus itself and was not an adjusted timestamp to Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
Could you scroll down, please, Ms. Gilman? Up a little bit, please. Thank you. The 3209, what did you understand that information to be?
Sure. So that is information I understood to be the last device lock recorded on Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
And what clock did you understand that time came from?
That would come from Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone clock.
If you reconciled his iPhone clock information, or if you compared it without reconciling to the Lexus information, what's the danger in doing that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Is there any danger in doing that?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that.
Is there any
Caution.
danger in comparing two times if you don't consider the clocks that they came from?
Yes, there is. So you could essentially be, in inaccurate time for when that event actually occurred.
If you could just scroll down to the bottom so we can see the rest of that. You mentioned the word variance yesterday during your direct examination. I'm going to ask you to look at that box that has the green around it. Is that an example of variance?
Yes, that is an example of variance between, no. So I take that back. That is not an example of variance itself. That is an example of, comparing the end of the text stream event to the device lock event.
Is that attempting to compare two different devices?
So that's attempting to, that's not attempting to compare anything. It's just stating that the time between the device event lock and the end of the text stream event, unadjusted, is approximately 26 seconds.
Is that accounting for synchronization or not accounting for synchronization?
That is not accounting. That is not with synchronization.
Can we turn to the next page, please? Did you review the next page of Mr. DeSorga's report?
Yes, I did.
And did it lead you to any concerns?
This page specifically, yes and no. So this page, again, is just showing the time difference between the end of the text stream event and Mr. O'Keefe's last device lock event.
Is this another way of showing the information that was in that green box?
It is. It's another way of showing the information in that green box, but it is not a clock variance or an adjustment.
Could you turn the page, please? When you read this page, is this a opinion or conclusion?
No, it does not.
What is it?
So this is just pointing out that when the 26-second window, which they'll refer as John's interaction window, when that number is positive, then the phone interaction occurs after the end of the text stream event. When that number is negative, the phone interaction occurs before the end of the text stream event ends.
Did you have any issue with that slide?
No, not that slide in particular.
Okay, we turn to the next page. Did you have an opportunity to review the next page?
Yes, I did.
And were you in agreement with this page?
I was in agreement with this page, yes.
And what does this tell us?
So this page points out that two clocks are not always in sync. So again, to synchronize those clocks, you would have to have a shared event that occurred on both devices.
If we could have the next page, please. Any chance to make that a tiny bit bigger, Ms. Gilman? Were you in agreement with this
No
page?
problem, Major.
No,
That's
I
what
was
I'm
not.
here for.
Tell us what concerned you about this page.
Sure. So this page is potentially misleading to the jury, again, by using,
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike.
I'll strike that.
Just tell me what your concerns were.
Sure. So my concerns with this, that it was potentially misleading to the jury.
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike.
I'm going to allow that. That's his concern.
Sure. So that this slide was potentially misleading to the jury because it uses incorrect adjustments to try and adjust the times.
How does it use incorrect adjustments? Explain that to us so it's very basic, please.
Sure. So as we kind of go through the next few slides, you'll see. But essentially what they're doing is, or what is being done, is they're comparing call logs, timestamps from call logs from when the phone was off, suggesting that, again, that the lock event occurs after the end of the text stream event, as well as incorrectly identifying the GPS point when the 3-point turn ends.
Will you better be able to explain that to us with the further slides that come next?
Yes, I believe so.
If we can turn to the next page, please. Okay. Is this just a label of what's to come?
It is.
And can we turn to the next page, please? If we could start, Ms.
Hey,
Gilman,
Greg.
with the top left-hand box, if you could enlarge that for us. Did you review this information in this box?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And before we get to your opinions, what does this information tell you?
Sure. So this is a snapshot from my initial report where I point out that the ignition on happens approximately 3 seconds before the infotainment power on event. So you can see that. I think we're up a little too high on the page.
Like,
Yeah. So highlighted in the red. That's based on our testing where we identified that the ignition on, or your finger on the ignition pressing it, and the engine coming on and the vehicle coming on happens 3 seconds before the infotainment system powers on.
you were asked on cross-examination about that 3 seconds between the pressing the button and the infotainment system going on, but you weren't allowed to answer the question whether you considered it or why that was important. So I'm going to give you that opportunity now.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Ask the question.
Okay. Is there significance to that 3 seconds, and did you consider it in your report, in your findings?
Yes, I did.
Share with us.
Sure. So when we make our adjustments based on the event, so in this case the 3-point turn, what we're looking at is the approximate time frame when that 3-point turn occurred via Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone, and then we're adjusting that for the approximate time that the text stream event and that 3-point turn ends. So as we sync those clocks, we're adjusting not only for the difference in the clocks, but we're also adjusting for this 3-second delay.
Did you accommodate that 3-second delay in your analysis and your conclusions?
Yes, that was included in my analysis.
Now back to the screen. The information there, is that text taken from your actual report?
Yes, it is.
Could we shrink the screen, please? And then
Shrink the screen.
photograph on the bottom left, if we could enlarge that. Is that as well from your report?
Yes, that is also from my report.
Did we look at that yesterday on your direct examination?
Yes, I believe so.
And briefly tell us what that depicts.
Sure. So that's during our exemplar testing, where again we've got it rigged with cameras that are recording video and timestamps of interactions we're having with the vehicle, which include powering it on and powering it off.
If you could shrink the screen, and we'll go to the right, Ms. Gilman. What was the import of this screen to you in its entirety?
Sure. So this is not actually a valid way to adjust or synchronize clocks because, again, we're not adjusting based on a shared event. So the ignition on event occurs. It is not recorded by Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone. But again, we are adjusting and including this in our timestamp adjustment.
If we turn to the next page, please. You were asked about the process of synchronization through phone calls or through the 3-point turn data.
Yes, that's correct.
Why did you choose to use the 3-point turn data instead of phone calls?
Sure. So I chose to use the 3-point turn data because it was closer in time to the event that was of interest, as well as it was based not only on the infotainment clock, but it was also based on that running timer. So once we adjust that first event to Mr. O'Keefe's phone, the second event is also based on that running timer, so it would also be adjusted. Did you have any concerns about using phone calls specifically? Yes, I did.
And what were they and why?
Sure. So those concerns were related to the phone calls that we could actually compare. And again, some of the phone calls that happened earlier or closer to the event of interest were not actually recorded by the infotainment system itself.
Why is it important to take an event closest to the time of the event you're studying?
Sure. So like I kind of said before, clock variants will change between devices as they are constantly syncing back up with reference systems. So a clock difference that you see at 1 o'clock in the day is not going to be the same as you would see at 2 o'clock in the day.
When you chose the 3-point turn, how close to the backing up event?
I'll admit, I can't quite understand that. Is he basically saying that the way that our technology works is that time changes depending on where we are as opposed to just the time zones? Like, is he saying that our phones will alter and update the time minute by minute if you cover a certain number of degrees by traveling? Like, is it like that my phone will change what time it's showing because I travel 2 hours west or east? Like, what he's saying there doesn't make sense to me. And look, I might just be being a bit of a dunce, but look, if the stuff that the defense expert relied on is inappropriate, then I fully expect them to cross him on that when we get to the defense case. But so far, this guy's just been a lying liar that lies about pretty much everything. So I'm taking exactly what he says with an absolute pound of salt. So
Was that in time?
I believe it was within 10 minutes or so.
Was that closer in time or further away in time than the phone calls as a method?
That was closer in time than the phone calls. If you think back to the phone calls that we could have compared, those occurred at 5 o'clock in the morning.
We turn to the next page, please. Did you have a chance to review this slide of the PowerPoint?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now you see on the left is a box. Where's that box taken from?
Sure. So that box on the left is taken from my report. That's going to be my initial report.
January 30th, 2025?
That's correct.
Okay. And share with us what you were trying to express in this box.
Sure. So again, this box is
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I
Sure.
apologize. Ms. Gilman, is there any chance we could enlarge the box on the left? My apologies. Okay, please proceed.
Sure. So this is a comparison of the calls. So the infotainment call timestamps are on the furthest left column. So again, your infotainment system, when you plug your phone in, is recording and synchronizing your calls. It's not great about recording and synchronizing every call. So there's a lot of calls here that we don't have that we know exist based on Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone. So the calls that we do have that were recorded in the infotainment system, we can compare to the timestamps that those are recorded on Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone. So when we do that, there's a couple things we notice is during that 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock and 4:45 time frame, when we look back at the power on and off events, we know the vehicle was not powered on at that time. So the vehicle's off. So those timestamps are not coming from the vehicle. They're coming from Mrs. Reed's iPhone or the defendant's iPhone. And then the times after 5:21, we know the vehicle has been powered up at that point. So those timestamps are coming from the infotainment system itself. So that's why we can actually do a comparison of those timestamps and determine the exact or the approximate clock variance.
When you look at the call timestamps of 1:14:13, 4:38:16, at 4:42:06, and 4:45:12, was the power on or off with the car during those four first calls?
Yeah, so with those first 5 calls, the car was powered off. And again, we know that based on the power on and off event. We also know that just by looking at the offset, it's a consistent 1 or 2 seconds. And that's what we typically expect and see between 2 iPhones. That's because iPhones are generally pinging back to Apple servers or GPS towers that are the same. So those times are pretty consistent and pretty accurate.
Was the power on by 5:04:28?
No, not at 5:04:28. It was still powered off.
So those first five events, were they reliable for you to use in synchronization?
No, they were not.
You gave us a number of reasons. One, the time distance between the event and because they were phone to phone. Any other reasons why they weren't?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll strike the first part, ask the question.
Besides the reasons you already gave us, are there any other reasons why this would not be a reliable way to synchronize 2 separate devices?
Not besides the points I've made already.
Okay. And if we could zoom back on this. The box on the right, is that from your report? Is that Mr. DeSorga?
That's Mr. DeSogra.
And was there anything about that analysis that concerned you?
Sure. So that analysis is misleading because, again, it's not comparing Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone to the infotainment system. It's actually comparing the defendant's iPhone to Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
Is there any acknowledgement anywhere in Mr. DeSorga's report that he appreciated that this was iPhone to iPhone rather than iPhone to infotainment?
No, there's not.
Did you ever receive any report from Mr. DeSorga that would alert that he appreciated that this was iPhone to iPhone and not iPhone to infotainment?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
If we could go to the next slide, please. Is this a similar or different slide?
Sure. So this is a different slide.
Okay. If we can zoom in on the left box, please. Where does that box come from?
Sure. So again, that's coming from the same page of my report, just highlighting the 5:30 phone call. And this is comparing the iPhone from Mr. O'Keefe with the infotainment clock.
At that point, is the power on of the Lexus?
Yes. So at this point, the power is on. So this is a comparison of the infotainment clock with the iPhone clock at that time.
Could you zoom out? That final box.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest, Major. The chat seems to have made more sense of it than I sure as shit could. And all this really goes to show is that this guy is not appropriate as an expert. And I really am hoping that Arca tear his theory to shreds. Because, like, don't get me wrong, I've just had a long day at work, okay? But I'd like to think that I could at least try and understand the words that just came out of his mouth to explain why his theory as to how it should be. I mean, I get that it's important that they sync up the Lexus to prove that it was in reverse at a certain point in time as to whether or not John had been hit by the car at that point in time or not. But the fact that he's also talking about syncing up with Karen's phone and John's phone and not really making any real sense out of it either. Because that, as bad as it sounds, that's got me wondering, is it important to know exactly when something happened in comparison to both John and Karen's phone? Because will that give us yet another potential timeline? So I'll be perfectly honest. I'm pretty sure that the both sides of the aisle are watching social media on this very closely, because even I've noticed in the last couple of days that there's been things that any number of us Lord Tubers that have been watching this have said, that we've commented on, and you pick up on things and you just notice things here or there. But they'd be absolutely fucking fools if they're not watching social media to get ideas, to get pointers, to get whatever else. Because think about it. If nothing else, you have a secondary network of worldwide attorneys paying attention to this trial. Now, while it may not do you any good, like during the hearing, may not do you any good if your witness is there for a short period of time. But for example, if you're doing cross and Bev gives Brennan the whatever else to call it to the end of the day, you've got a night now to prepare for whatever questions you wanted to ask. If the defense team did not spend time reviewing what people were saying about that trial that night, and then coming in the next morning and having additional ammunition, I will eat my tinfoil hat. So
that shows the comparison between the defendant's Lexus and Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone. Do you have any concerns about the accuracy of that information for that time?
No, so I think those times are accurate, but again, that's at 5 o'clock in the morning when we're trying to adjust the clock variance, and it's too far away from the time in question. So if we zoom back in to the box, we can actually see in the data what I'm talking about as far as clock variance will change, with time. So the phone call at 5:21, we see an offset of around 8 seconds between the two devices, between the infotainment system and the iPhone. And then at 5:30, which is only 9 minutes later, we can see that offset has actually increased between 16 and 21.
In capturing this data, were there phone calls between the infotainment system and Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, those last two phone calls were between the infotainment system, or were recorded by the infotainment system with Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
How does that happen?
Sure. So that's when the device is connected up to the vehicle and you make a phone call, the call is recorded within the infotainment system, and it's recorded with the infotainment system's timestamp.
Could you focus on the right-hand box, please? Did you review the right-hand box?
Yes, I did.
Was that from your report, or is that Mr. DeSorga's opinion?
That's Mr. DeSogris.
Did you have any agreement with that?
Yes, so I do agree with that calculation, but again, that's 5 o'clock in the morning versus when we're really interested in around 12:30.
Can we have the next slide, please?
Ooh, excuse me. I agree. As soon as he was discredited, I really couldn't give a rat's ass what he had to say.
Do you know where this photograph came from?
Yes, so this screenshot came from Dr. Welcher's presentation.
When's the first time you saw this screen?
When I saw this presentation.
In Mr. DeSorga's report?
Correct, yes.
Had you seen this before that?
I had not seen this before that.
If we could focus in a little more, especially the bottom left hand. When you reviewed this, did you feel any need to do further testing?
Yes, I did.
Why?
So what we're looking at, if we zoom back out, so what that is the 12:23:38 is the approximate time that the text stream event occurred. Now, what we want to do is we want to be able to compare that to the 3-point turn from Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone. What you'll notice, though, is right here, we've got a circled GPS point. So if we can zoom in there.
What would you say? Stuff from Viva and Barnes is wound up with the Trump administration. Oh, well, you know what? It's not like I'm going to get a big head or anything, but I would laugh so hard if there's a file note anywhere in the Karen Reed like in the defense team's files that says Aussie guy reviewing trial says fuck this shit, it's bull. Or something along those lines.
So this circle here is actually circled GPS point 155, which is after this point, but we'll kind of ignore that. But GPS 154, and it's hard to see, the time is 12:23:58. When we look at that, what we see is that actually that GPS position is recorded before the 3-point turn even starts.
Good morning to those of you just joining
You
us.
mentioned
Welcome.
154 was recording before the 3-point turn starts.
Correct.
Make sure you're smashing that like button on the way in.
Turn, a time before or after that 12:23:58?
Sure. So the end of the 3-point turn logically would be after this point.
At the time you saw the slide, had you broken down point 154?
No, not at the time that I saw this slide.
Could you zoom back out a little bit, please? The information in the right box, is that from you or from Mr. Disorga?
That is not from me.
And when you read that, did that compel you to want to do anything?
Yes, it did. So again, my initial thought was to address this during testimony. With further review and further thought, I decided it was best to offer a supplemental report.
But what took place during the conversation that you had with Brennan the day before you provided that report? What was said? What was discussed? How long was that phone call? I want details of those phone records. Because if that was a 10, 15-minute phone call, that was more than just, oh, okay, so I need to be here at this time. I need to do that. I need to... Oh, by the way, I'm going to be putting in a supplemental report. The second those words come out of his mouth, Brennan's got an obligation. Let alone allowing it to just be dumped on the 8th. Come on.
What this is, basically the math I agree with. The point I don't agree with is that GPS 154 is the time towards the end of the 3-point turn. And now reviewing further data, we know that's not true.
The 12:23:58 event on the phone, is that related to the first event, the 3-point turn, or the second event, the backing maneuver?
So that's going to be related to the first event, the 3-point turn.
Was there any other data that was closer in time to the to the backing event that you had access to?
No, not that we had access to.
We turn to the next slide, please. You've seen this part of the report before?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said yesterday, Stephanie, is that if this was me, I absolutely would have been... Look, I would have swung for the fences. I would have applied for a mistrial based on the information being entered during the middle of the trial, based on the fact that the prosecution spoke to a witness and an additional report was then immediately provided during the trial. You know, I would have taken sanctions. I'm not sure why they didn't fight that harder, but that's my own personal opinion. Like I said, I've got a very different litigating style to these guys, and they may well know something that I don't, given I'm not in the jurisdiction. So,
Yes, I have.
Having seen the earlier part of the report, does it help you explain and understand this diagram?
Yes, it does.
Is this your diagram or Mr. DeSorga's?
This is Mr. DeSogris.
Do you agree with this diagram?
No, I do not.
Okay, could you explain to us what this, from your perspective, from your experience, what this chart is trying to suggest?
Sure. So this chart is trying to suggest that the lock event always occurs after the end of the text stream event. And again, that's using inaccurate adjustments to make that conclusion.
I want you to use the pointer, and I want you to take us line by line why you believe that this is inaccurate in trying to conclude the time of those locking adjustments.
Sure. So it's kind of hard to tell. So what we've got is we've actually got two different sections. So we've got the top section, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 events. So that's going to be the GPS event, and those. Let's see. No, that's going to be this. It's hard to say. That's going to be the phone calls and the GPS event that are calculated in this, and it's also done with the 3-second delay as well.
I'll be honest, I feel like we crossed the threshold of prosecutorial misconduct way earlier in this case. I think the only reason that they're holding onto a shred of that is that the prosecution made a prima facie argument. I'm not saying it was a right argument. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying that it had enough substance that Bev can look at it and go, well, you had issues with the ARCA, so I'm leveling the playing field. But she's... Whatever she says to herself to get it to sleep well at night, I honestly don't know. I don't care.
Adjusted. But what we see is, so this obviously +1 is one of the phone calls that was from the defendant's iPhone time. So not from the infotainment system. So that's a inaccurate comparison. Same thing for the +2, the +1, the +2 again, the +8, the +16, and the +20 are going to be those last two calls. If you'll notice, the very last call, we can't really tell which phone call is the correct one to compare. So we're using both within that same time frame. And that's why we get the 16 or the 21 second variance. But again, that's 5 o'clock in the morning. So that's not appropriate for the time that we were interested in. And then the 20-second variance is coming from that inaccurate GPS position comparison.
Could we enlarge that a little bit, Ms. Gilman? On the 2021, is that plus or minus 21?
So that is -21.
The 20 and 21, is that based on different information than the 1, 2, and 8?
Yes, it is.
And explain again
It's a
for us
VR
where's the
headset,
different sources
a
of
quite
the information.
expensive one.
Sure. So the -20
Yeah,
is
but
coming
Facebook.
from that GPS point 154, which we know is not the end of the 3-point turn. It's right before the 3-point turn begins. And the -21 is coming from the last phone call that happens around 5:20, I believe, or 5:30. And again, that's 5 hours after the time of interest.
The -20 and -21, is that suggesting that time should be taken off or put onto Mr. O'Keefe's phone for synchronization?
Sure. So that's suggesting that time should be. I'd have to go back to the other slides. I believe that's either way. It's suggesting that the iPhone lock event occurs +6 or +5 seconds after the end of the text stream event.
Besides not accommodating for the timing of that timestamp at the beginning of the 3-point turn, is there anything else about this that concerns you?
No, just that overall, these numbers can be misleading, again, because they're based on inaccurate adjustments, and could lead, again, the jury to believe that the lock event always happens after the end of the text stream event.
Can we go to the last page of Mr. DeSorga's report? Is this a conclusion offered by Mr. DeSorga?
Yes, it is.
Did you agree with that?
No, I did not.
Why not?
So based on those inaccurate adjustments, this slide is again kind of misleading in the fact that it states there's always interaction with Mr. O'Keefe's phone after the end of the text stream event.
Okay.
You can take that
but
down
is
and
the
turn that off,
interaction
please,
with
for a
the
moment.
phone in the majority of the scenarios?
After reviewing this report, you told us you then engaged in further study for synchronization.
Yes, I did.
Did you call me on May 7th?
Yes.
And what were you told to do about a report?
On May 7th?
Yes.
Sure. So that
but it's
was
entirely
finish
up to
the
you.
report and submit it.
Did you?
I did.
When did you submit it?
May 8th.
And do you know that it was provided to the defense by email on May 8th?
Objection, Your Honor.
Do you know if it was provided to the defense?
Yes, I know it was provided. I don't know when.
Now, if we could have Mr. Burgess's PowerPoint, we can go back to page 38, please.
I think it's a given at this point. This man's a fraud in my
After you
personal.
explain to us,
Objection, Your Honor. Can we proceed on scope?
Ruh-roh. Brennan stepped in something. I still refuse to believe it. Is Alessi really 67 years old? The man looks damn good for his age, if that's the case. I saw. And we're slowing down.
15-minute logical reasoning. A 15-minute logical reasoning. I thought it would be quicker than my fault, so I'll go for lunch and Mr. Burgess again.
Thank you.
All right, please. Jared, let's go for follow me.
Dude, learn to take a corner. Fuck's sake. What'd you say? 50-minute lunch. Alright. Hopefully I won't skip over it. Wish me luck, chat! Oh, the stupid law and crime music again. I hear audio.
Your first, sir, when I asked you about your first report regarding the protocol, you told us October 10th, followed by your supplement on the 17th. You did not remember the day that you first received any information offered by Mr. DeSorga. Is there a document that may refresh your memory?
Yes, there is.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
I want you to read this. I just want you to look at any part of it.
Okay.
And look up when you're done, then I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
Well, I mean, look, Emily knows what she's talking about. She's got the experience, and she was a prosecutor for how many umpteenth years.
Does that
But,
refresh your memory the first time that you saw any information?
I'll be honest, I'm sitting here, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with your assessment on that. I mean, if you are going to listen to and believe that this guy knows what he's talking about in terms of the data, it does kind of sound like he knows what he's talking about. But if you disregard him, well, you're going to disregard it anyway. The guy knows how to make himself sound knowledgeable. It's whether or not what he's saying is accurate, and it's whether or not the jurors are going to believe what he's saying. Which is the $1 million question, or in this case, the $5 million question.
Provided by Mr. DeSorga?
Yes, it does.
And when was that?
November 7th of 2024.
Before or after you recognized the megabit, megabyte oversight?
That would be after.
I want to go back to where we were at before we went to lunch. You had described two text stream events. I want to focus on the first text stream event, and that is the text stream event relative to the three-point turn.
Okay.
You had described that there was a timestamp 154. Just to reacquaint us, can you very briefly tell us the significance of 154?
Sure. So GPS point 154 is a GPS point that occurs just before the three-point turn starts.
And why is it important to identify when that turn starts and when it ends?
Sure. So what we're specifically looking at comparing is the end of the three-point turn. That's going to be the text stream event ending, which is near the end of the three-point turn, as well as the end of the three-point turn as recorded in Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
Was it important to identify the beginning and end of that event to come to a conclusion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty regarding the variance between the text stream data and Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, there was. So we can't say, we can pinpoint approximately when the three-point turn ends based on the GPS data. But best practice would be to use a range of time. So the range we're using is the time that the three-point turn starts to the time that the three-point turn ends.
Could we have from Mr. Burgess's PowerPoint number 41, please?
You make a good point, Bush.
Is this part of your presentation helpful in explaining the beginning and end point of that three-point turn?
It does. So if you recall yesterday, the heading change, first heading change from a general north heading is depicted by that green shading circle.
Could you use your pointer, please?
Sure, yes.
Ms. Gilman, can you
You
enlarge
got to
this a little
remember,
bit?
the jurors are still from this area.
So again, this green circle is going to be the center of this circle is going to be the GPS point itself. That's going to be centered on the horizontal radius, which is the accuracy. So the green circle represents the 16-foot accuracy zone. The black.
Oh, Christ. How did we wind up on this? Is he going to start talking about how he can't possibly, did the green circle go inside the house? Oh, fuck.
Arrow coming off in a northwestern direction is going to be the heading for that point. And then again, the yellow is going to be the approximately 8 seconds later when the heading changes again in a southerly direction. And then the GPS points after that also continue south with increasing speed.
What part of the 3-point turn event does the green circle signify?
Sure. So that's going to be the approximate beginning of the 3-point turn.
And that time?
That's going to be 12:23:59.
The yellow circle, what part of the 3-point turn does that indicate?
Sure. So that's going to be approximately the end of the 3-point turn. And that time is going to be 12:24:07.
Is there any correlation between the times in the green, the time difference between the green and yellow circle, and the range you ultimately arrive at as far as the synchronization variance?
Yes. So that is what determines that range of 21 to 29 seconds.
This illustration or diagram where you've put the green circle, is that based on actual data?
Yes, that is based on actual data recorded by Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
That data, is it
Is it high
accurately
accuracy or low accuracy?
reflected in this diagram?
Yes, it is. So again, the GPS point that is recorded within the iPhone, every point has a horizontal accuracy. And again, that horizontal accuracy is depicted by the green circle.
Is that level of precision used when you create this diagram?
Yes, it is.
The yellow circle, is that specifically reflected in the data, or is that an estimate?
Sure. So that's specifically reflected in the data. So that is another GPS position that has been recorded by the iPhone, again, with a horizontal accuracy, a timestamp, and a speed and heading.
How about the orange circles?
So the orange circles are are portions of the GPS positions leading up to this event. So if we went back one slide, you would see, it would zoom out, obviously, so a little bit harder to see. But essentially what we've done is I've removed the other orange circles representing GPS points heading north and the GPS points heading south after the 3-point turn. And I've just removed those for clarity to kind of clean up the map so it's easier to read.
On the left, text stream 11621. Remind us again where that information comes from?
Sure. So that's the text stream. That's the end of the text stream event for the 3-point turn. And that is based on the infotainment clock as well as that running timer from the airbag control module.
Does this diagram reflect the data that you reviewed to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes, it does.
In breaking down this timestamp 154 and getting into the minute detail of when it started and ended, one of your charts, does it also show it numerically?
Yes, it does.
Can we have number 40, please? And before we discuss this again, where did you get the information to put in this chart?
Sure. So this is coming from Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone. Specifically, it's coming from a SQLite database that is recording locations as he's using the Waze app to navigate.
Is the information
So
in this chart or diagram directly from the data?
It is directly from the data.
Is this accurate to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes, it is.
If we could zoom in just a little, we'll have to go left to right, Ms. Gilman. Let's start with the left. Timestamp 154. At what point in that 3-point turn does 154 represent on the left?
Yeah. So timestamp 12:23:58 or GPS point 154 is approximately 1 second before we see the heading change. If we could zoom out just a little bit more. Yep. So we see the heading change represented in green. That's a heading change to 284. Before that, we've got a pretty consistent heading of 348 to 339. So that first heading change, as well as the drop in speeds, is indicative of a 3-point turn maneuver.
The latitude and longitude, did that assist you in making the diagram with the circles on it?
Yes, it did.
How so?
So the latitude and longitude are the center points for each GPS point, or the center point for each circle.
There's a green highlighted row and an orange highlighted row. What's the difference between the two?
Sure. So the green highlighted row is, again, the beginning, the approximate beginning of the 3-point turn. And the orange or the yellow is the approximate end of the 3-point turn.
And the time between the green and the orange lines?
Approximately 8 seconds.
Is that consistent with the range that you've shown for synchronization?
Yes, it is.
0.21 or plus 21 and plus 29?
Yes, it is.
The inevitable variance that you found between the text stream data and between Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone, could you share with us to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty what that variance is?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you have an opinion about the time range and the synchronization between Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone data and the Lexus clock that shows the text
Objection,
stream
Your
data
Honor.
to a reasonable degree of scientific
Lack of
certainty?
qualification to
Objection, Your
apply.
Honor. Appreciate it. Approach it before we adopt.
Thanks.
Okay, so
Oh my
answer that
god!
question, yes or no?
Sure. So yes, I can.
Oh fuck you,
So
Bev!
I'll see you inside that again, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Your Honor.
scientific certainty my ass. Recross, I think, is going to be glorious, but right now, this is just doing my head in. Well, the irony is that if he actually had a Bachelor of Science, he would have a BS degree, but he doesn't, allegedly. And I don't like. I'm weirded out by the fact that they have not called for his exclusion at this point. Like, I get that he's supposed to be a rebuttal witness because they got to have Arca in and whatever else. But after you find out that he doesn't have the expert qualifications, how is he still testifying? What, he's still qualified as an expert because he's worked for a number of years on the basis of false qualifications? Like, this just feels weird and odd to me. And yes, those are two different things. Yes, he can't successfully BS because he didn't get his degree in BS. Well, that's always been the question that I've had, Coitus, is that you've got to pay attention to the wording that the lawyers use at different times. Can you say to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty? Who determines what's reasonable? Can you say that 40% certain is a reasonable degree of scientific certainty? Is 60%? Is 70%? Is 50.1%? Which, to be fair, is the balance of probabilities. That's quite literally civil litigation standard. Is it 0.1% more likely to have occurred than not? I kind of feel like it needs to be significantly higher than that for scientific certainty. I mean, bad as it sounds, at a 40% chance, you could almost say that it's not scientific, because scientific for something to be scientific, doesn't there have to be a opportunity to have replicable results? Well, if you're only 40% sure, then like 3/5 of the time you're not getting the same results. So how is that scientific? Anyway.
Can we go back to slide 40, please?
I'll call him retarded.
In reaching your conclusion about the variance between the defendant's Lexus as contained in the text stream as it relates to Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone, was stamp 154, timestamp 154, part of your analysis?
Yes, it was part of my analysis.
Was the running clock on the text stream data part of your analysis?
Yes, it was part of my analysis.
What else was part of your analysis?
Sure. So in addition to the location data, including the GPS 154, that would be the running clock for the text stream data, as well as the infotainment clock from the Lexus.
How does the running clock correlate with the text stream data and with the time on Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone?
Sure. So they correlate. So the running clock and the infotainment clock are used to create that timestamp for the text stream events 1 and 2. And then comparing those to the iPhone, we can adjust and get a clock variance for those.
Did you come to a conclusion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty about the variance range between the defendant's Lexus and its clock system and Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, I did.
And to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what is that variance that is needed to identify for synchronization?
Overruled.
That is 21 to 29 seconds.
We now have number 43.
Well, I mean, either writing for Disney or working for their accountants.
Did you create this diagram?
I did, yes.
When comparing the tech stream event, the backing maneuver, to Mr. O'Keefe's clock on his phone, do you recognize the different timestamps on each device?
Yes, I do.
When you are trying to synchronize them, what do you do? What is the base? Do you start with the tech stream event and you add, or do you start with Mr. O'Keefe's phone and subtract?
Sure. So we could do it either way because we're wanting to compare this against other events that happened or occurred on Mr. O'Keefe's phone. We're going to adjust the tech stream clock or the Lexus clock.
Denisha was out of sync. Guess the variance was about, what, 30 minutes? Uh-oh.
To Mr. O'Keefe's clock. But you could do it either way.
The window that is depicted on this diagram, this is not the three-point turn?
No, this is not the three-point turn.
Which event is this?
This is going to be the backing maneuver.
The green, what does that green depict?
Sure. So the green depicts the range of time that this tech stream event ended. So based on our range of 21 to 29 seconds and applying that, adding that to the Lexus clock, we get a adjusted time of 12:32:04 to 12:32:12. And that's going to be the approximate end time of tech stream event 11:62:2.
Now, again, the tech stream data has a limit on the amount of time available?
Can you rephrase your question? So I
Sure. You said
understand.
a window is captured during a triggering event.
Sure. Yes. So there is a window that's captured during the triggering event.
And what is that window? How much time?
Sure. So from the tech stream trigger, there's 5 seconds before and 5 seconds after.
Can an event be longer than that 10-second window?
Yes, it can.
And in this case,
How did you?
Do
No.
you
How did
know-
you get to that? How did you get to the 5 seconds before, 5 seconds after? Like, are you just pulling that out of your ass? Is that an established thing that it's part of the manufacturer specification that happens? Like, if you're speaking with that kind of certainty, hey, Alessi, what are you doing? Get off your ass and raise an objection. But there was no foundation for that statement. What the hell?
at the end of this reconciled event at 12:32:12, do you know from your study what direction the defendant's car was traveling at 12:32:12?
It would have been traveling in reverse.
And at 12:32:12, do you know how fast the defendant's Lexus was traveling at 12:32:12?
I do not recall.
Mr.
what did it assist you to
O'Keefe's
see your
last
report?
user interaction with his phone at 12:32:09, where does that fall within the 10-second window that was captured by the text stream data?
Sure. So that falls within that 8-second window. So again, the text stream event ends somewhere between 12:32:04 and 12:32:12. But that does not represent that the backing maneuver has ended. Just the recorded data has ended.
And in your review, do you have around this time any other movement of Mr. O'Keefe's phone after 12:32:16?
I did not look at that specifically. It was my understanding that Mr. Whiffen looked at that.
To a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, did
So what
both
good are
these
you?
events, the
Fuck
last
with?
user interaction and the window captured on the reconciled data for the text stream, happen around the same time?
Yes, they did.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
Or I can approach later or now.
So we can approach again.
Okay, well, firstly, thank God. Of course, Bev would have allowed it. I'll allow it. That was the first time I'd heard her actually, like, forcefully say overruled in a while, though. But, all this to me, all this shows to me is that a witness that spoke with the prosecution mid-trial amended his report to make it seem as if John locked his phone prior to getting run over. And in addition to that, he goes, oh, yeah, well, you know what? It only recorded allegedly 10 seconds of her being in reverse, but she could have gone longer. I don't know if anyone else caught that. That is just, that this guy is just full of shit. He really is. But I am worried because looking back on the redirect, based on the questions that Brennan asked, based on how he responded, like, he may not have his degree in bullshit, but there's a chance here that some of the jurors are going to get bamboozled by what he just said. And I mean, that's really all that Brennan needed from him, was to muddy the waters. So now it's going to be up to Arca to come out and say, well, no, there's no way in hell he was hit
Your
by
Honor,
a
I
car.
move into evidence the following pages from Mr. Burgess's PowerPoint presentation. Move into evidence page 41. I move into evidence page 40. And I move into evidence page 43.
Okay, allowed.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right. Once we get these, we'll help you.
Thank you.
Fair enough. I mean, let's be fair. This trial hasn't been great for my blood pressure either.
A, B, and C.
All right. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Leslie.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go for it, Alessi. Bob coming in with the big swings. Come on, big balls. You can do it.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess, between the time you left the witness stand yesterday until this moment, have you talked to anyone about this case?
No, sir, I have not.
That's a deadly question.
Has a filing ever been made in any court in which your educational background has been misrepresented?
No.
Oh, dude. Unless he did the research and did the digging. Like, don't get me wrong, I feel like he just covered Brennan's ass there. But, damn, that's a very pointed question. I'm guessing, unless he's come in with case citations. Oh, this is going to be beautiful.
Not that I'm aware of.
Pardon me?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of. Way to keep yourself from being perjured.
Did I understand that you're based out of the Aperture office in Texas?
Yes, I am.
And are you aware of a case in the United States District Court, Eastern District of Texas, Marshall Division, titled Jeffrey Glover and Teresa Glover versus Graphic Packaging International, LLC? Are you familiar with that case?
Yes, I am.
And is it correct that in that case, well, tell me how you are participating in that case, sir.
So I'm no longer participating in that case. So if I believe correctly, that would have been a accident reconstruction case from, I don't recall, a year or two ago.
And so it was a case that you did participate in, correct?
Yes, I did.
And what was your role in that case?
Sure. So my role in that case was an accident reconstructionist.
And did you provide any testimony, deposition, or otherwise in that case?
No, I did not.
Did you, in that particular case, there were, like all cases, filings made, correct?
I'm sure there were, yes.
Come on.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I would like to have a document marked as the next exhibit for identification,
Okay.
please.
Is it EEE for ID?
It's Easy.
May I present to the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess, I am showing you a document which has been marked as Exhibit EEE for identification, and I'd ask that you take a look at it, sir. Your Honor, may I remain here?
Sure,
Thank
as long as you stand back a little bit.
Exactly, yes. Thank you, Your Honor. I'll take it even farther.
What color's his face? Is he going red yet?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess, with regard to Exhibit EEE, do you recognize the second page, and do you recognize any stamping at the top of each of those pages?
Yes, I do.
And can you describe what that stamping is?
Sure. So that is stamping for a file date of 8/7/2023.
And is that a stamping of a federal court?
That I'm not sure.
If I were to show you a document, might a document refresh your recollection as to whether
Sure.
Exhibit EEE is a filing in a federal court?
Yes.
May I, Your Honor?
Sure.
I am showing you,
Did you show those to Mr. Brennan?
thank you, Your Honor. I believe I did, but I want to make
And
sure.
just let me know if we need to move.
We will, Your Honor. Can I mark each of
Yes.
these for identification? They're,
Yep.
let me just give one.
She's being
first.
nice to Alessi, and I don't like it. It's weirding me out.
If I could see that back, then what I want to see this is the second.
Can you see Brennan stamping his feet?
It is, so it can be marked as one document.
That's right. Thank you.
I reach over you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Sir, I am showing you what has been marked as Exhibit FFF for identification and ask whether or not this document can refresh your recollection as to whether the court filing that you reviewed in Exhibit EEE is indeed a federal court.
Yes, it is.
So that document refreshes your recollection that what has been filed is represented in EEE as a filing in a federal court, correct, sir?
Correct.
Now, what I'd like to do is to draw your attention to the second page of this exhibit. Is that a curriculum vitae of you and a picture of you?
Yes, it is.
And sir, under education,
Objection.
I would,
The objection's stayed.
right. Do you,
Do you want to bring it over? We can take
I
it
will,
forward.
Your Honor, I will.
Jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch.
Okay, so this one's going to be long enough. I don't want to know whether or not Bev's moist. That's disgusting, disturbing, and I don't want to even think about it. No, of course she wasn't even listening. Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know what may have caused her to have a little bit of a change of heart. It might have been how fucking terrible this witness has been, and she's regretting her life choices. We can only hope. But at this point, she's just... I don't know. Maybe she got laid last night. I don't know. I don't care.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess, I'm going to have to get a little closer in
Sure.
proximity. Bear with me, please. What I would like to do, sir, is to put before you again Exhibit FF for identification and Exhibit EE for identification. And what I would like to do is to ask you some questions, sir, with regard to the process in the case.
Okay.
Are you aware, or do you recall in this litigation that, as typical in litigation, including federal courts, that as part of the litigation process, the parties have to designate their expert witnesses? Are you aware generally of that process?
Generally, yes.
Yes. And have you participated in the documents that need to be prepared for an attorney or a party to prepare documents and submit them to a court to establish the designation of expert witnesses?
No, I have not.
And so you have never participated or never been aware of a process like this?
No, I'm aware of a process, and that process goes through other staff members
Okay, so it goes through other staff members where?
Dude.
at Aperture.
Are you aware that that process is occurring even though it may be done by other staff at Aperture.
Yes, I am.
And in this instance, you were aware in this litigation that staff at Aperture needed to submit documents in support of an expert witness designation, correct? Even though you may not have done it yourself, you were aware that some person or persons at Aperture were performing that process, correct?
Correct.
And they were performing that process so that you could be designated as an expert witness in that case, correct?
Correct.
And so you were aware of the process, you were aware they had to submit documents that would establish your qualifications as an expert in the case so that you could be designated as an expert witness, correct?
Correct.
And now specifically with regard to Exhibit EEE for identification with these court filings, etc.
Okay, that now explains the photos that I saw on X. The whole not for witness designation. That makes more sense now. That's fucking funny. Oh yeah, the people that work with me just submitted my CV, and it wasn't me that lied. Like,
Even though you may not have done it yourself, were you aware that this document, which is EEE, was submitted as part of the expert designation process we were talking about?
Not this specific document, no.
Were you aware that a CV was needed to be submitted on your behalf as part of the designation process?
Yes.
So you were aware a CV had to be submitted, but you're saying you don't recall this specific one being submitted?
Correct.
Does the timestamp up at the top of each page of Exhibit EEE, including this page that is your CV, match the timestamp, or is it different from the timestamp at the top of Exhibit FFF?
No, that is the same.
So it's exactly the same.
Yes.
And have you been involved in processes in courts where your qualifications, including your CV, have had to be submitted to courts to establish a designation as an expert witness?
Yes.
And can you conclude from these documents, including the timestamps, that the submission that was made to the court to establish your status as an expert witness consisted of Exhibits FFF and EEE?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that. Were you aware of that?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I move
Suck it.
EEE and FFF into evidence.
You need one more step.
And sir, do EEE and FFF fairly and accurately represent the submission of documents in support of a designation of expert witness in this case?
Yes, as far as I can tell.
Your Honor, I offer these two into evidence.
I'm going to allow it.
May I have briefly?
Yes, come on up. Bring those, please, Mr. Wright.
Yes, Your Honor.
wow. She actually she did something surprising there. She walked him through what she wanted. I'm starting to think she might have a thing for Alessi. She wants a lot more, not Alessi. That's how you do a pun, Boosh. Well, we're getting closer. We're back on the recross.
You have your approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Shit.
I'm going to have to stand here again, Mr.
Sure.
Burgess. So what I would like to do, Your Honor, at this time is to offer into
I can't help it. At some point, I'm just expecting him to go. And here is exhibit.
evidence Exhibit EEE and Exhibit FFF for identification
As one exhibit?
as one exhibit.
All right, we'll do that.
And that would be the order.
Exhibit 193.
Thank you. May I hand to the
Yes.
Mr. Burgess, I am
I might
handing
be a
you what is
goober,
now
but
in
I'm a
evidence
semi-famous
as Exhibit
goober.
193. I would like to draw your attention to the fourth page, which is your CV, and further, if I could, sir, draw your attention to the category of education, where it says BGS, is it correct that there you state Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration, University of Alabama - Birmingham, Alabama, comma, 2024? Did I read that correct?
You did read that correctly. And this was filed in 2023.
Understood. So now what I'd like to do, Your Honor, is to keep this for a moment, Your Honor, give it to the witnesses as needed. Thank you.
Damn.
With Your Honor's permission, I would like to publish a document that is already in evidence.
Okay.
Actually, there may be two, 183 and 184. Let's start with 183. Let's expand it. And then,
Have a good night, Glennis.
Mr. Wolf, do we have what has just been
Thanks for watching.
to publish as well? So what I'd like to do is to publish first, with the court's permission, Exhibit 193 that we were just talking about, so the jury can see what has been the subject of discussion. And sir, if you, Mr. Wolk, if you could just enlarge, all we need is the education section.
Or
Now-
lack thereof.
Mr. Burgess, as I heard it correctly in questions from Mr. Brennan, you answered the question that whether you had ever filed a document that misstated your educational background in a court. Do you recall that question asked of you?
Yes, I
And
did.
your answer was no, correct, sir?
Correct.
So let's look at
So you
this
lied
document, which we've
on the
just gone
stand
through, was filed
again.
in federal court in the United States District Court, Eastern District of Texas, Marshall Division, which is a federal court. And attached to it is your CV. And in the line of education, it lists under BGS, Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration, University of Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, 2024. You see that, sir?
I do, yes.
Now, you stated, and now what I'd like to do is is there any qualification whatsoever in that line, that reference to BGS, qualifications at all, explanation, sir? Is there anything?
I don't know what you mean.
It's just a statement, right? There's words there. There's nothing after it that explains what's intended.
He's saying, well, dude, previously you got away with it because you said currently pursue, which, by the way, I'm updating my LinkedIn to say ruler of Australia, currently pursuing. But he's got you dead to rights. And now he's just twisting the knife. That's all it is.
Correct?
Correct.
Now, what I'd like to do, Your Honor, is to go to what was filed in this case, which is in evidence, and we'll go to 183 and then 184.
Fatality. Finish him.
Now, in what has been filed in this case, there is a currently pursuing at the end after University of Alabama - Birmingham, Alabama, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Let's go back, please, to Exhibit 193. There is
How
no
the
currently
fuck do you
pursuing
rehabilitate that?
there, is there, sir?
There is not, but that was filed in 2023. So that would be an expected graduation date of 2024.
Okay, so it was
Fuck off! Fuck right off! You don't do that. Even if you put that on your CV, you absolutely include the qualification and say expected end date, or you don't put it on at all. Or, you know, you include the words currently studying. What the fuck, dude? You lied through your goddamn teeth. Only difference is this time around, you got caught bad.
this document was filed in 2023. However, there's nothing in this document that in any way leads the reader to believe anything other than the degree is obtained on 2024, correct?
Correct.
At this point,
So the
I don't
only
think there was
way
possible
somebody
version.
in the court system or a judge or a jury would know anything about this is to have to know about court filing dates, correct?
Ah,
I'll ask it another way, Mr. Burgess. You know how to write. Let's go back to 183 and 184.
what are those popping
You know how to
sounds?
write
Vein-
currently pursuing.
What is with the vein? What are this with the popping sounds? Are those the veins in his head going, or what?
On your CV, correct?
Correct.
And writing currently pursuing lets the reader know that you don't have that degree, correct?
Objection.
In that form, it's sustained.
You intend by writing currently pursuing, don't you, sir, that anybody reads this to know that you do not have a bachelor degree, correct?
Correct.
Now let's go back to what you filed in what was filed in federal court in that case. And it does not have the words currently pursuing, correct?
It does not.
So the reader, it doesn't have that verbiage, correct?
Correct.
So isn't it
They're gonna have to clean that chair after that guy gets off the stand. The mixture of sweat, urine, and shit that's gonna be left behind from this guy evacuating himself after all this is just gonna be monumental.
correct answer that you did file a document, your CV, in this federal court case that misstates the status of a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Business Administration?
Objection.
Sustained.
Excuse me, Your Honor. You stated again, sir, that you have not filed a document that misstates your educational background, correct?
Correct.
And the last time I'll cover it, you know how to put currently pursuing on anything to do with a Bachelor of Science, correct?
Correct.
So why didn't you?
A Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration does not exist as an offered degree at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, does it?
Sure. So that is an error. Clearly, BGS stands for Bachelor's of General Studies, and that should have a with minor in Mathematics and Business Administration.
What is clear
What
from
the
that document that
What the fuck? What? You lying motherfucking puss bucket! You have lied on your resume about what degree you were pursuing for the last 17 years, and it's a Bachelor of General Studies with a minor in math? What the absolute fucking bullshit is this now? Yes, even his lie was an additional error. Oh yeah, that's a typo. How? No, that's not even a typo because there's entire words that are missing.
that BGS stands for a Bachelor of General Studies? What is clear in that document about the definition of that acronym?
That is a known acronym.
Let's go back to Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration. That degree does not exist. It is not offered at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, correct?
No, that is not.
So therefore, an incorrect statement about your educational background was filed in a federal court in Texas, correct?
Yes, it was.
So you just lied on the stand and you just admitted to perjury. Boom!
That's it, Mr. Leslie?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything?
There is.
Okay.
Oh, what are you? No. This is gonna be. What do you even try and do here, Brennan? You should just cut your losses and lick your wounds. Are you serious right now? What are you doing, man? Egads!
The document that the attorney just showed you, did you submit that to the federal court?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see that document before it was filed?
No, I did not.
Why
The
not? It's your
document says-
CV.
2024 for a degree. Is there a presumption whether you had it or expected it if that document was filed in 2023?
Yes, there is.
And what is the
No, there's
presumption if
not.
it was
You
filed in
didn't put it on the
2023?
document, you fucking liar.
So presumption,
Oh.
well, I'll strike that.
Okay. he asked if there was any designation to make it clear. If it says 2020, if it was filed in 2023, and it says 2024, what was your expectation at that time as far as your degree?
That I would complete my degree in 2024.
When you didn't complete your degree in 2024 as you expected, did you then change your CV
Yes, I did.
to accurately reflect the change in your status?
Yes, I did.
And what did you change it to?
Currently pursuing.
Why didn't you finish your degree in 2024?
Sure. So
No, I'm going to allow it.
Of course
as
you
most
are.
people can probably relate, work, family, and life many times get in the way. So as a personal objective, I would like to finish my bachelor's, but again, work and life
After
gets in the way.
17 years.
Did you ever represent to a court that you had a degree that you didn't earn?
No, I have not.
Yes.
He asked you a number of questions about this 2023 filing, but didn't ask you any questions about the data. Does your opinion regarding the data change in any way in light of his questions about a 2023 filing that you didn't file and someone filed on your behalf?
The objection is sustained. I'm going to strike that question.
No further questions.
All right, Mr. Burgess, you are all set.
Thank you.
Holy pus buckets. Brennan, that was not worth it. You should have walked away and licked your wounds. All that did was make you look like an You got the guy to lie twice on the stand.
Mr. Brennan?
I'd like to play a number of clips.
Of course you would. If you have someone file something on your behalf to give you a witness designation, that filing is if you filed it yourself. Can his wife sue for a divorce on the grounds? Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, no, there is no way in hell this guy's job survives the trial. I mean, look, I will say that I will stand by what I said this morning. I think Aperture will hold on to him and not take any corrective action against him until after the trial, because that may be seen to influence things. Because she said that he was set and good to go. She didn't say that he was released, so he's still subject to recall. So, oh, Lefty, I've only got like 5 minutes left, dude, but appreciate it. All right, let's see what these clips are.
If I can begin with clip 23.
I agree he should be facing sanctions for that shit. Wow.
So we approach from the north. We actually missed the turn. And John says to me, it's Fairview, we just passed it. It's back there. It's on my left. I said, all right. So I pull into a driveway and back out onto the street, which I now own as Cedar Crest, and then come from the north onto Fairview.
I'd like the next play, clip 25.
Actually, I'll tell you what, I've got to go pick up my mail anyway, so I'll keep the stream running for an extra 5-10 minutes. So.
At 12:41, I leave a voicemail to John, and you can clearly, and this will probably be played on Monday, you can clearly hear me pull into John's garage. You can hear my car sensors beeping as I come close to the sides of the garage. And then you hear the car go off, and then you hear the slight ding, 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 as I open the door, shut the door, I have high heels on, and I hear me walk in, go into the stairs up into the kitchen, shut the door, and hear me walk in the kitchen. It's like a full minute long. That's at 12:41.
And finally, clip 24.
Oh, actually, no. I just remembered. I've got this work conference thing tomorrow, so I'm not going to be home. So I should probably actually spend as much time as I can with the little one. Yes, it's all right, dude. I have stopped. I'm not going to run you over. Keep walking. Thank you so much to everyone that's dropped by to raid, though. And appreciate it, Lefty. Very much appreciate that, too. Wow. I actually have a headache, though, from that last witness. Damn. What happens when you're rolling nat 1 and crit? Crit fail on a deception check. I love that.
I I do. I mean, I'll tell you, John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So he died, we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the earlier morning, January 29th.
Thank you. I have these for submission at the evidence, right?
194.
Hey, congrats on the monetization. That's no easy feat these days. Well done.
Yes, sir. On Commonwealth call, Miss Christina Hanley to stand.
Christina Hanley. All right, actually, you know what? I'm going to pause the witness there because there's no point in getting stuck into it when I'm either going to have to do another hour later on afterwards, or I'm going to have to pick it up on the way to work tomorrow. We shall see exactly where we wind up with that. I mean, what? You'll have to forgive me. I'm trying to use my big boy words. The clip to me seems pretty freaking irrelevant. I mean, I get why he's taken out of context. Karen never should have done those freaking interviews. I get why they thought that it would be a good idea. It wasn't. Okay? Honestly, taking a clip that, she and John had an argument that morning out of context like that, I can say with all certainty, in the last week or so, Lady Overlaw'd and I have both had a lot on our plates, and you know what? We got into I don't even know how to describe it. We got into a fur flying match, okay? Yelling, screeching, crying. She said some things too. But the point is, we love each other and we've been together for years, admittedly. But it's not as if either of us were going to go and run another over. Yes, exactly. We're human. The whole idea that, the relationship was coming to an end, they were arguing, so she ran him over. It's a crock of shit. Shoulder the time on my phone with the car. No. I'll be honest, that's still, that whole testimony that he gave about the car time updating whenever you connect to the phone and that sort of thing, I'm starting to wrap my head around it more and more now, but I still don't think... Dude, what the hell are you doing? Indicate, motherfucker! Indicate! I still don't think that what he said accurately represents the fact that John locked his phone prior to being hit by the car, allegedly. None of that actually makes any sort of sense. So, he was just a horrible witness overall. And no, I fully expect that at the end of this trial, he will be looking for another job. He will have to update his CV. Bachelor of English, Literature degree, currently pursuing. But anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for the raid, Lefty, again. If you're new here, maybe feel free to hit that sub button, because I do this pretty much twice a day, every day, whether it's for the Karen Reid trial, whether it's for court videos, cop cams, all kinds of crazy crap. But it'll be a guest on the Ricada show. Jesus Christ. Damn it, Acorn, you got me with that one. No, I'm not even sure this guy is qualified to be a Walmart employee at this point. They were short on blinker fluid. Anyway. So I'll be back in what are we? 12, 14. I'll be back in 14 hours for whatever this witness is going to be. I have no idea. This time tomorrow, I will be at a work event, so there will be no stream this time tomorrow. And the next morning, there will also not be a stream. So there'll be one tomorrow morning in 14 hours. After that, there won't be any streams for probably at least 24 hours. I'll try and keep everybody updated as to when I'll be back, but unfortunately, I got to go to this conference and I got to stay overnight. I mean, look, if I can swing something tomorrow night, my time after the conference, maybe. But my understanding is that the dinner starts at 6 and may go through till 11. In which case, I'll be too tired to stream. But anyway, people, as always, please, for the love of God, remember you are not a piece of shit, unlike that witness. And as always, people, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise, and I will catch you all on the flip side. Cheers, peeps.
And again, on your way out, please do me the favor of hit the like and subscribe button if you're so inclined. It costs nothing. It's absolutely free, and we'll be friends forever. Bye now.
Unfortunately, some members of the media
use their platforms to push their own personal bias, and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Nope. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.